Okay, let's do chapter 1. God's revelation to Moses at Mount Sinai is the chapter heading. This is taken from Exodus 24, 12 through 18. And it begins like this. In the first year of the exodus of the children of Israel from Egypt, in the 3rd month, on the 16th day of the month, so the first year when the Israelites are coming out of Egypt after the Exodus, the 3rd month is Sivan, on the 16th day of the month. So this is the 16th day of the month of Sivan. God speaks to Moses saying, "Come up to me to the mountain." This is a quote from Exodus 19:1. That's where the quote of the 3rd month is from. But this quote saying, "Come up to me to the mountain, I will give you 2 tablets of stone of the Torah and the commandments that I've written so that you teach them." This is God speaking to Moses in Exodus 24:12. The law, the teaching, the doctrine. This is when Moses is invited by God up to the mountain to be taught the Torah and the commandments by God. And this is what the angel is recounting, still as part of the framing of this book. Moses went up into the mountain of God. God's glory rested on Mount Sinai. It was covered by a cloud for 6 days. And on the 7th day, there's this theme again of sevens, the Sabbath. God calls to Moses on the 7th day from the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of God's glory was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain. Some sort of devouring fire on the top of the mountain. We're not told here that the fire is burning but not devouring. The glory is like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain. This comes into the conversation of where this mountain is. For all the people who think that it is in the Arabian Peninsula, on the other side of the Gulf of Aqaba, where there are mountains with very parched black tops, not enormous mountains, but mountains nonetheless. So that's where this conversation comes, right? People say, well, even if God's fire comes down, that doesn't mean that it's devouring. Here we see no proof that it was not devouring. We're not told, like we are for the burning bush, that it is a fire that is not devouring. So the appearance of God's glory was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain. Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, a very whole number. We see this number with Noah. We see this number throughout history with many holy figures with God. 40 days and 40 nights are some period of communion that repeats itself. God taught him the earlier and later history of the divisions of all the days of the covenant. So I love this perspective where the angel is showing us. It's not us imagining Moses and God in some sort of communion. It's now there's a witness there who's telling us Moses was there. God taught him this history of the division of all the days of the covenant. Okay, he said, "Focus your heart on every word that I speak to you on this mountain. Write them in a book so their generations will see how I have not forsaken them despite all the evil that they brought by transgressing the covenant that I established between me and you for their generations this day on Mount Sinai." So we're still in this framing of this book where we're there with them. We're with this witness who's saying what was said. God says to Moses to focus his heart on these words that he's being spoken to and to write them in a book so that for all the generations, including all of us right now, how we will see that God did not forsake these Israelites. And this story is an allegory for everyone. Including the descendants, including non-descendants, all of humanity. Jubilees has a very universal over-theme from this angel. Write them in a book so their generations will see how I have not forsaken them despite all the evil that they brought by transgressing this covenant that I established between me and you for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. God saying, I know that they're going to mess up. I know that they're going to do evil. I know they're going to transgress this covenant. But he goes forward with it. He goes forward with it knowing that they will transgress, telling Moses that they will transgress. That's sort of a given because God is giving these lofty ideals for us to all struggle with. That's sort of the game here, to interact and to struggle To Yisrael, the word Yisrael comes from struggling with God. That all people who associate with Israel are a part of, who wish to struggle with God and be in a relationship with God. When all these things happen to them, or in verse 6, they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all their judgments and actions, and they will recognize that I have been true with them. God is saying He is the source of truth. He is the true judge. He is more righteous. He is the truly righteous one, which is good. We all can use this dose of humility, knowing that you can never be more righteous than God. You can never be more perfect in your judgments and actions than God. He's saying when all these things happen, when they mess up, they're going to recognize I'm more righteous than they are in all these things. They will recognize that I have been true with them, that there is a source for truth. There is a source for where a true judge gets its sovereignty, gets its right to pass judgment, and it is from emulating the true judge. Write for yourself all these words that I say to you this day, as I know their rebelliousness and their stiff necks. I know they're going to mess up, so write down everything I'm saying to you so that you have it for all their generations, for everyone who chooses to seek out the truth. Before I bring them into the land I promised to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to whom I said, to your descendants I will give a land flowing with milk and honey. God promises Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that the land of Israel will be given to their descendants. But before I bring them there, write down all these things. I have to tell you all these things. This is the true covenant we're making. There's a lot we need to talk about. They will eat, be satisfied, and turn to foreign gods, those that cannot deliver them from their difficulties. He knows they're going to turn to foreign gods, who can't do anything for them, as Abraham says later to his father. This testimony will then stand as a witness against their testimony. The written word, this ancient written word that has been passed down, stands as a witness throughout the generations. They will forget all my commandments, all that I command them. They will walk in the ways of the other nations after their impurities and after their shame. So although this is particular about the nation of Israel, there is always a universal message also to be gleaned for those who associate with Israel, for those who ally with Israel, for those who wish to struggle with God, are also included in this experience of learning from these ancient sources, from where monotheism comes, the beginning of where humanity touched with God, where God had a relationship with Adam, all of our father. God spoke to Adam, all of our father. They'll forget all my commandments, all that I command them. Well, certainly today we've forgotten so much. And they will walk in the ways of the other nations after their impurities and after their shame, serve their gods, and this will become a fatal trap for them, a calamity and an ailment. I know they're going to mess up. I know they're going to serve other gods. Many will perish, will be taken captive, which is part of all of our prayers, that the captives be redeemed currently. Falling into enemy hands because they disobeyed my orders, commandments, festivals, and Sabbaths of my covenant, my holy place that I've sanctified for myself among them, my tabernacle and my sanctuary that I've sanctified for myself within the land, to set my name upon it, for it to live there. So he's wrapping all together how God and God's orders and festivals and Sabbaths are part of him. And so is his holy places, so is his sanctuary that he has sanctified within the land. All these things that he sanctified to put his name on it, to live there, he's bringing himself down to earth and in a metaphysical way, and for the purpose of being closer to us. They will make for themselves altars, pillars, and graven idols. Each will worship their own idol in sin and sacrifice their children to devils. So let's go into the commentary here a bit, okay? First of all, when he talks about descendants, this descendants is about seed, zera in Hebrew, which means seed, offspring, descendants, and posterity. I'm not reading every one of these footnotes because there are so many that source and cite where these verses are coming from, piecemealed from throughout Deuteronomy, Exodus, and mostly Deuteronomy and Exodus in this area. Let's see, Jeremiah later, Kings later, but we're not going to read all of these Leviticus. We're not going to read all of these sources. We're just going to talk. So in terms of the altars, these altars are elevated places. Asherot is translated as groves. It's referring to specific trees that used to be worshipped. Wooden pillars were erected in honor of Asherah, an ancient fertility goddess associated with Astarte and Aphrodite, worshipped by Sidon, Tyre, and the Philistines. So that's what he's referring to in terms of these pillars and these altars. It's someone specific, something specific. But we know for today, we have our own types of idols and our own types of altars and our own types of pillars. So that's what he's saying. Each will worship their own idol in sin and sacrifice their children to devils and to all the ways of their erring hearts. I will send witnesses to them so that I can testify against them, but they will not listen. They will slay the witness too and persecute those who seek the law. So Jesus is considered a prophet by so many that was killed, and he was not the only one to be considered a prophet who was not accepted and not listened to. It's tough to accept the truth. It's tough to accept the hard truth. Jeremiah also had this experience of not being listened to or accepted, and he did so many things to try to get attention from people to be listened to. He's saying witnesses will be sent so he can testify, but they will not listen. They will slay him and persecute those who seek the law. So things will become twisted, and he knows things will become twisted, even though this is happening after the time of Noah. They will repeal and change everything to do evil in my eyes. People will twist God's words. People will twist the truth of the traditions and the essence of the traditions. They will repeal and change everything to do evil in my eyes. I will hide my face from them and deliver them into the Gentiles' hands, into captivity and as prey to be devoured. So when it comes to, by the way, sacrificing children, this could be literal, as in 2 Chronicles 28:3, when some Israelites fell to the ways of the surrounding pagans they were meant to conquer. But it can be taken figuratively too. If one worships foreign gods, they are effectively sacrificing their children and future generations to those evil ways and being cut off from the nations. I will hide my face from them, deliver them into the Gentiles' hands. I will remove them from the land. I will scatter them among the nations. And so this prophecy is in a lot of the prophets' books, and it is always a very moving prophecy to see as a Jewish person, knowing that now there is a nation of Israel again, meaning a country, a state of Israel again. There is an ingathering of exiles that has been going on since even before the foundation of the state of Israel. But in the 1900s, there's been a steady stream back, a steady stream away. The scattering of the nations, the wandering Jew, it's such a part of the identity of Jews that it's always touching when we see in print, I will scatter them among the nations. They will forget my law, my commandments, and all my judgments, and will become lost regarding the new moon, Sabbaths, festivals, jubilees, and practices. So many have become lost. For example, Marranos, people who have had to pretend to take on themselves a different religion, whereas they stayed Jewish and kept their practices, or in the times of the Greeks. For example, this is a Hanukkah season, and so that's also relevance there. People will become lost. After this, they will turn to me from among the nations with all their heart, all their soul, and all their strength, and I will gather them from among the nations. That is what is occurring right now and with each of us continuously, hopefully. They will seek me such that I will be found when they seek me with all their heart and with all their soul. A beautiful verse. I will reveal to them abounding peace and righteousness. I will transplant them as a plant of righteousness with all my heart and with all my soul. So he's saying, if you seek me, you will find. Seek and you will find. All the more so for God. Truly seek genuinely and you will find. And you will be revealed abounding peace and righteousness. Transplanted as a plant of righteousness. So not only will you feel this peace and righteousness and be revealed it, but you will be this plant of it that now grows it and now helps it to grow in the world, righteousness. With all my heart and with all my soul. I love these verses because it's God speaking, and he's saying with all my heart and with all my soul. These are verses that are very familiar to Jews as they are in the Shema prayer that is said at least 3 times a day, at least twice a day by Orthodox Jews, often 3 times a day, sometimes many times more on holidays, and contained in the mezuzah scroll on the doorposts, as well as in the tefillin, the phylacteries. This idea of with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength, b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha, with all of your heart and with all of your spirit or soul and with everything you have in you. With everything you have in you, should love God. Love God with all your heart and all your soul and all of your belongings and self. And here it's saying, I will transplant them as a plant of righteousness with all my heart and with all my soul. And so seeing how God also has these parts to it is a beautiful, touching thing in these verses that I'm not used to seeing. To me, they will be a blessing and not a curse, a head and not a tail. So despite all this, knowing what they will do and that they will go wrong, God will always be their God. God will always be there, and they will always be his people in truth and righteousness. He will not abandon or fail them because he is God. How does that make sense? I will not abandon them because I am God their Lord. The idea is that God is constant. God does not change. God is always there. God is our pillar. God is our strength. God is there when we are weak, when we are fallen. God will always be there. And this is very reassuring. Moses bowed low and prayed. He said, "O God, my Lord, do not abandon your people and your inheritance, so that they must wander in the error of their hearts." He's not giving up. He's saying, do they really have to go through this? Do they really have to go through doing all that bad? But then they're going to have to wander in the error of their hearts. Don't deliver them into the hands of their enemies, the Gentiles, or they may be ruled over by them and caused to sin against you. You really want your people that you chose and you love to sin against you? He's bargaining with God, which is beautiful. We see with Abraham and Sodom and Amorah, him bargaining to try to save these people. He talks back to God, and this is a key important thing with God, is that we can talk to God and almost debate, and there's a back and forth. It's not a slave and a master. It's a relationship as children. We can also use the analogy of slave and master, but we should also be able to use the analogy of children, all of us, every single person. Let your mercy, O God, be lifted onto your people, Moses prays. Create in them an upright spirit. And we know these beautiful verses from Psalms 51:14 or 51:12, Ruach Nediva or Ruach Nachon. Do not allow the spirit of worthlessness to rule over them. Accuse them before you or trap them from all the paths of righteousness. Don't allow this to happen so that they die before you. They're your people and your inheritance that you delivered with your great power from the hands of the Egyptians. Create a pure heart and a spirit of truth within them. Also a famous psalm from 51:12, right there by the Ruach Nachon. Clean heart and a Holy Spirit. These beautiful prayers. May they never become trapped in their sins from now until forever. And this also is important with Psalms. We know many Psalms are from David or Solomon, but there are others from throughout time, and some are very ancient, and some are just these verses, these sayings that have stuck with the Israelite people. And so David and Solomon, David would have woven them into his additional Psalms, but these are ancient prayers. I do believe that this is true, that this is a true book. May they never become trapped in their sins from now until forever, Moses prays. God said to Moses, I know their rebelliousness, their thoughts, and their stubbornness. I see their thoughts, he's saying. They will not be obedient until they confess their own sins and the sin of their fathers. Meaning we have to realize we're not perfect. Our parents are not perfect. We have sins. We have what to grow and learn, all of us. After this, they will turn to me in total uprightness with all their heart and with all their soul. Until we mess up, we realize that we were wrong, that we messed up, we had things incorrectly, and turn back to God. Until then, we are lost, he's saying. I will remove the barriers from their hearts and the barriers of their descendants' hearts. So he's saying, I will take their heart of stone, and I will make it a heart of flesh, is a different verse, a different famous quote. I will remove the barriers from their heart, meaning I will circumcise their hearts. I will make their hearts heal. And that's a process of healing that we all need to go through. I will create a Holy Spirit in them, and I will cleanse them so that they do not turn away from me from that day forever. So there is this time from which we can't turn back. We know God, and we know the Bible is true. Not every single thing everyone says to you in the name of the Bible, perhaps, but this essence of our unity, where we come from, what we are, is true. God is true. Their souls will bond to me and to all my commandments, and they will fulfill my commandments. I will be their father, and they will be my children. They will all be called children of the living God. I love that. Children of the living God. I would love to be called child of the living God. We are all children. We are all children of the living God. God is alive. God is ever changing. God is not dead in a book. God is not a dead piece of stone with some carvings on it. God is alive, breathing through all of us in this world. And every angel and every spirit will know, yes, they will know, that these are my children and I am their father in righteousness and in truth, and I love them. This is also something so special about Jubilees, just saying that he loves us. We were commanded, ve'ahavta et Hashem, we should love God. We were commanded in the Bible, we should love God. And here God is saying, I love them. I love them. I don't know how that would have looked in the original Hebrew. I can't really fathom it, but it's beautiful to even see here the angel saying that God says this to Moses. I love them. I am their father in righteousness and in truth, and I love them. Write down for yourself all these words that I declare to you on this mountain, the first and the last of that which will occur in all the divisions of the days in the covenant, in the weeks and the jubilees, for eternity, until I descend and live with them forever. So by the way, I think another support for this Jubilee being periods of 50 is that if it wasn't periods of 50, it would have been enough to say weeks. What's the point of saying 49? 7 weeks? It's just 7 weeks. That's all it is. It's not a Jubilee. The Jubilee is the period of 50. Until I descend and live with them forever. This is a great support for those who believe in Jesus coming down. However, for those who, then there's so much to talk about that whole thing. But the idea is God has this element of Shekhinah, of presence on earth. God is more present in a holy, clean, beautiful, respectful space than in, the lowest, worst places on earth. God is everywhere. But there are places that reflect holiness more and less. And God's saying, I will descend and live with them forever. They will feel my presence. My presence will be among them. And also there's perhaps an allusion to God has asked, or God will ask, I don't know exactly when this interchange is occurring, for Moses to create a tabernacle, a home for God in the lower realms, which becomes a permanent place in Jerusalem, a permanent place in the lower realms. God asks for a home in the lower realms. And so perhaps that is also related to descending and living with them forever. Next, God commands the angel. He said to the angel of the interior, write down for Moses. So who's speaking? God. God is saying to the angel of the interior, who, by the way, is referred to as also the angel of the presence by Charles, the angel of the face by Shad. Those are two men who translated Jubilees from the Gez Ethiopic into English over a century ago. So presence or face, essentially Malach Panav from Isaiah 63:9. Rashi writes on that verse that this is Michael, the angel Michael, who is Sar HaPnim, the prince or minister of the Pnim. The Pnim is the interior, but it's related to the word for Panim, face or countenance. And the Bala Sulam says this is the angel Metatron, also known as Sar HaOlam, the prince or minister of the universe. I've also seen him referred to as Memtet. He's known as Sar HaPnim because he has dominion over the upper Sefirot of God, God's upper elements, which are known as panim. All right, there's more on this in the hardcover version. So he's saying to the angel of the interior, which I felt is an apt upgrade to those terms. He's saying to this angel of the interior, write down for Moses from the beginning of creation until my sanctuary has been built among them for eternity. So either he's saying, write down from the beginning of creation. That's what we're about to do. We're about to go through the beginning of Genesis through Exodus 12 approximately. But he's saying, until my sanctuary has been built among them for eternity. So it's not just the temples that had the intention of being there for eternity. It's until I have a sanctuary there for eternity. There is a constant prayer for a place for God in the lower realms that will be there forever. A place for eternity for God in Jerusalem is what he consistently requests so nicely too. Why wouldn't we give it to God? God will appear before everyone's eyes, and all will know that I am the God of Israel. What does it mean God will appear before everyone's eyes? Everyone will have an awareness of God. There's a wonderful quote I love that says that in the end days, the knowledge of God will flow in the world as the waters cover the sea. Some wave will come over us where we'll have godly awareness as a humanity, which I don't think we have right now, but we pray for. All will know that I am the God of Israel, the father of all the children of Jacob, and king on Mount Zion for all eternity. Zion and Jerusalem will be holy. God declares Zion and Jerusalem will be holy. There is nothing anyone can do about that on any side of anything. Zion and Jerusalem belong to God. The earth belongs to God. And God is father of all the children of Jacob and king on Mount Zion. The true king is always God. The angel of the interior who had appeared before the camp of Israel recorded the tablets of the divisions of the years. So it's saying that this angel of the interior appeared before the camp of Israel. So perhaps many of the Israelites saw this angel or experienced this angel in some way, and that's part of all the traditions that are in the Israelite tradition about angels. But there are traditions about angels throughout pretty much every spiritual faith society throughout the world. These heavenly figures, I mean, where do we go when we pass? And where do we come from when we're born? Knowledge of that the world is not only a physical place. So the angel of the interior who had appeared before the camp of Israel recorded the tablets of the divisions of the years. And this is these tablets of these tablets that I put in the back in the appendix, the first one, right? 0 to 50, Jubilee 1. 51 to 100, Jubilee 2. 101 to 150, Jubilee 3. That way the angel could say, oh, in the 17th Jubilee, this happened. And then in the 40th Jubilee, such and such happened. And we have these knowledge of how to break things up by 50s, which is a good way to break things up because, as we said, it's a whole system as distinct from the weeks of years that are also referred to. So this angel recorded these tablets of the divisions of the years from the time of the creation of the law and testament of the weeks, the jubilees according to the individual years, the total number of jubilees from the day of creation until heaven and earth are renewed. It's not clear if he's referring to the end of the book when the Israelites now are going to enter Israel as when heaven and earth are renewed, because that would also make sense. I think that there's definitely a place here where this book is recording from the day of creation until heaven and earth are renewed, the entire creation with the powers of heaven, all the creations of the earth, until the sanctuary of God will be established in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. Now that definitely doesn't happen by the end of this book. So again, there's this allusion to this end time where things will come to a wholeness. People will be aware of God, and there will be a sanctuary of God in Jerusalem on Mount Zion, which is a prayer of peace for all people, a place for God that he asks for. So everyone who's God aware and God conscious should wish for this. All the luminaries will be renewed for healing, for peace, and for blessing for all the chosen of Israel. Such will it be from that day for all the days of the earth. So there is this ancient tradition about how the sun, the moon will become large again, like something about the luminaries being renewed. There is a midrash again around it. I haven't fully looked into it lately, so I won't speak to it. But what this means will be renewed for healing, for peace, and for blessing. It's a beautiful thing. Healing, peace, and blessing. Everything we need for all the chosen of Israel, those who survive the difficult times ahead. And Israel, I consider Israelites and their descendants and their allies, those who choose to be a part of the nation of Israel by allying with it, in my heart, are very much a part of Israel. For all the chosen of Israel, such will it be from that day for all of the days of the earth. Meaning, once we get to this day of healing, peace, and blessing, of God having a sanctuary on Mount Zion, of the God awareness in humanity, once we get to that day, such will it be from that day for all the days of the earth. This is a theme that repeats itself throughout the prophets, and it repeats itself here from this angel who is up on Mount Sinai with God and Moses. And that is the end of chapter 1.